Well, LSU baseball sweeps Texas ULL and Texas State at the Astros College Classic over the weekend in Houston. The good, the bad, and the things we still have questions about after this past week.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome into Locked On LSU. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we're also on YouTube as well. So don't forget that. You can also watch the podcast in addition to listening to it. And you can check us out, Locked On LSU on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified as soon as new episodes of the podcast drop. Today's edition of Locked On LSU is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Have you ever wondered what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. All right, let's get into it. Huge weekend for LSU baseball this past weekend. The Astros College Classic at Minute Maid Park, where the Astros play in Houston. I think an incredibly encouraging weekend of baseball from this LSU team. I think that we've gotten some more answers. I think that I feel better. In fact, I do know that I feel better about this LSU baseball team after this past weekend than I did before. And that's not to say that I felt bad about this team. Like, I thought from the jump, like from the very, like before the season even started, like, this is a College World Series contending team. Like, this is a team whose expectations are to host a regional and a super regional and get back to Omaha, even if you don't win at all. Like, there's high expectations on this team. And I felt like those expectations were warranted. Of course, there were still questions. What does life post Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens and the rest of that core kind of look like? But I feel so much better about this team, and it's for a few reasons. But great overall weekend for LSU. They beat Texas on Friday night 6-3, ULL 5-4 on Saturday. Texas State, they win it 10-5. Now, earlier in the week, LSU did play Rice in Houston. That wasn't part of the classic of this Astros Classic, so I'm not adding that into this kind of breakdown of what we saw over the weekend. But of course, the bats were still flying in Houston earlier than that game against Texas on Friday. I think one of my bigger takeaways of the weekend was the changeup that we saw on Friday night. Thatcher Hurd went into the season. He got the first Friday night start against VMI, started again Friday night the next weekend. And Luke Holman, over those the first 2 weeks of the season, was giving you much better stuff than Thatcher Hurd. Like, Luke Holman was totally shut down, had complete command of his pitches, whereas Thatcher Hurd, he wasn't giving you the longevity that you need from a starting pitcher and was frankly losing command. He didn't look like your Friday night guy. He didn't look like the kind of absolute nails pitching or pitcher that we saw from Thatcher Hurd in the postseason this past year. Now, after that second week of play, I said, I know that there's going to be a whole lot of conversation about moving Luke Holman to Friday night. And I said, it's not something that I would do right now. And it has nothing to do with Luke Holman, and more so that I know what Thatcher Hurd can do. We all know what Thatcher Hurd can do. We saw it in an LSU uniform this past weekend. Or this past season, rather. I just would have given it a little bit more time. Now, I'm not opposed to the move. When I saw it announced, I believe it came out late Thursday night, that Luke Holman was going to get the start on Friday. It wasn't like I was like, Jay Johnson, you idiot, what are you doing? No, that's not the case at all. Okay, all right. Now, Luke Holman is getting the nod. He's getting rewarded for what he had done the past 2 weeks. While I would have waited on it with Thatcher Hurd, shows how much I know, because if Luke Holman wasn't on the mound on Friday night, I don't think that you win that game against Texas. Now, you can play revisionist history all that you want, but just based on what we've seen from Luke Holman so consistently over these past 3 weeks versus the peaks and the valleys and the ups and downs and the inconsistencies from Thatcher Hurd, Luke Holman really gave you everything that you could have asked for on Friday night against Texas. So Shocker, Jay Johnson knows more than I do. But Luke Holman gave you a great game against Texas on Friday night. Texas, the number 15 team in the country. The place looked packed. I wasn't there. I wish I could have been able to, but I wasn't. Place looked packed. It's a Texas team that you're gonna get their best game night in and night out. It's a very talented team. Huge game, massive stage. Luke Holman gave you 5 2/3, only gave up 3 hits, 0 runs, only 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts. I would caution anyone to compare anyone to Paul Skeens, okay? Because Paul Skeens is one of the best college pitchers to ever play the game. Like, he's a once in a generation kind of guy. You don't just get the same kind of production from someone else the next year. Like, it's the same thing of, like, be very careful of comparing any football team, LSU or otherwise, to the 2019 LSU team. Like, beware of comparing any NFL defenses to that of the Chicago Bears in the 80s. Like, beware of comparing anyone to the best to ever do it, or any team to the best to ever do it. So I know I've seen those comparisons be thrown around. Be careful with that. Might be a little irresponsible at this point, but frankly, those comparisons are coming up for good reason, because Luke Holman is giving you Paul Skeens kind of numbers. Now, Paul Skeens is just different. 3 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts, and 5 2/3 innings. I don't know how much more you could ask for. And you got great starting pitching, at least for the most part, a majority of the season. Gage Jump got the start on Saturday, so I was kind of surprised by this. I figured that Thatcher Hurd and Luke Holman would just do a little, a switcherooski, a little flip. But no, Thatcher Hurd got the start on Sunday. We'll get into that. Gage Jump, the UCLA transfer, got the start on Saturday. He gave you 5 innings, gave up only 1 hit, no runs, 5 strikeouts. Great start from Gage Jump in that win, that 5-4 win. Fun, a fun game against ULL on Saturday. Thatcher Hurd, like I said, got the start on Sunday. There was some good, there was some bad. I've been kind of disappointed with what we've seen from Thatcher Hurd, just the entirety of what we've gotten from him on the season. But I looked at Sunday as a step forward, as a step in the right direction for Thatcher Hurd. And that was for a couple of reasons. Was because in his first 2 starts, he wasn't giving you a lot. Like, you need more than 2+ innings from Thatcher Hurd. You need more than 3+, 4+ innings from Thatcher Hurd, from your starters, especially once we get into the brunt of SEC play. Like, you can't just be blowing arms. You can't just be getting 3 innings from your starter. You got 5 from him on Sunday against Texas State. That is a step in the right direction. Now, he still gave up 7 hits and 3 runs. Now, Michael Braswell didn't really help him out on one of those runs. Texas State notched 1 run with 2 outs, and then they brought in 2 more later on in that inning. That was what, the fifth inning, fourth, fifth inning, at some midpoint in the game. So Michael Braswell just missed an easy gimme grounder there and gave up a run. So I can't put that on Thatcher Hurd, but still, you can't be giving up 7 hits. It's just frankly too many in only 5 innings of work. But he only walked 1. And that's an improvement. So you got 5 innings, but he gave up 7 hits, and he only walked 1, but he gave up 3 runs. So there was some good and some bad there from Thatcher Hurd on Sunday. But again, step in the right direction. The relief pitching was a bit of a mixed bag. Nate Ackenhausen gave you 2 1/3. He gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, struck out 6, but gave up 3 runs in just over 2 innings. Can't be having that. Griffin Herring on Saturday gave you 2/3, 3 hits, 3 runs. You can't be doing that. Sunday, Javen Coleman just completely kind of lost his control and his command. He ended up walking 4 batters, giving up 2 runs. But then you continue to get great closing stuff from Fidel Ulloa. Christian Little had some good work on Sunday. You saw Gavin Guidry. He gave you some good stuff on Saturday and Sunday. So the relief pitching is a little bit of a mixed bag, but overall, I step away from this weekend being really, really encouraged by the starting pitching. But let's flip offensively, because it was a great offensive weekend from LSU as well, and we will get into that coming up next. All right, I want to tell you about Nissan. So, are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? And have you ever wondered what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. So, the 2024 Nissan Rogue, it is perfect for city drives and great escapes. They've got class exclusive Google built-in that will always be updating to call on for truly anything, and the 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. And also, the 2024 Nissan Armada, it could change what you expect from a full size SUV. If you're looking for something just a little bit bigger, picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first class luxury and style. So, all of our parents out there that are going to be carpooling to and from school and practices, that might be a perfect option for you. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. That's shopnissanusa.com. Again, that is shopnissanusa.com. Check out the new Nissan 2024 Pathfinder, Armada, or the Rogue. Great options for you for whatever your needs might be. All right, rolling along here, locked on LSU. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we are part of the Locked On Network, your team every single day. And Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So find Locked On Sports Today right now, available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, let's get back into it. Rolling along here, Locked On LSU. LSU sweeps the Astros College Classic, and they win the weekend. Vanderbilt and Houston as well. Talk about a freaking comeback from Vanderbilt. Was that Saturday night? They were down bad against Texas. They kind of scratched and clawed their way back. So a big win for Tim Corbin and their team. Vanderbilt also swept the weekend, but just by run differential. LSU got the nod, and LSU wins the weekend 6-3 over Texas on Friday night, 5-4 over ULL on Saturday, and Texas State took it 10-5 on Sunday. You got great starting pitching. Luke Holman just continues to be a freaking just dynamo on the mound. But you were also really solid offensively on the weekend as well. I can't believe that we are now almost 13 minutes into the podcast and I have yet to name Hayden Travinski, because my goodness, has he just been the picture of consistent production at the plate. I viewed Hayden Travinski as a very pivotal player going into this season and really throughout the entirety of the season, because baseball is such a game that you're so dependent on age and experience that you're going through the brunt of a really long and tough schedule. It's I do feel like, for the most part, when you look at the teams that have won the College World Series of the past, I would like to do a breakdown of this. I haven't done that, nor am I going to do that, frankly, because I just simply do not have the time. But how many College World Series champions had 3-4+ years of experience? Like, what the average age of consistent starters for College World Series champion teams are. And I would say it's probably older or higher, significantly higher than several other teams in that conference or several other teams in the field. Experience matters, period, but especially in baseball. You lost a lot of your experience. You lost a lot of, the seniority that you had on your team this past year. A lot of those players that were catalysts for you, not just throughout the regular season, but throughout Omaha, the entirety of the postseason. You lost a lot of that. But what you did bring back was Hayden Travinski, and he has been so consistent at the plate. He was 5 of 10 on the weekend. He had a home run on Saturday, which ultimately ended up serving LSU very well, because it was a home run that extended LSU's lead 5-3. ULL hit a home run in the ninth inning, but that was really all that she wrote. You ultimately ended up winning 5-4. Without that Travinski bomb, you could have found yourself in extra innings against ULL. So that ended up being huge. Three doubles on the weekend as well. So Hayden Travinski has become one of those that when I'm watching a game, it's like, okay, cool. Travinski's up to bat. So or you feel pretty good about him at least getting on base or him at least giving you some sort of offensive production. So great weekend from Hayden Travinski. Had a Tommy White bomb to left center against Texas on Friday night. Again, another one of those guys, seniority. He's been around the block. He's returning from last season. And another guy that you can rely on, at least, to this point, fairly consistently to produce at the plate. Barry Jones with a 3-run bomb against Texas as well. So just in terms of, running up the score, pretty solid weekend. But I think the other thing that was really solid from LSU, and it wasn't necessarily production, but more so just being smart with how the game is played. They weren't just able to run up the score in some of these games, they were running up the pitch count. And that is huge. And that really is a skill that comes in handy that's really, really dangerous once you get into the brunt of the season, once you get into the postseason. I understand we're very far away from the postseason, but running up the pitch count. LeBaron Johnson, who's the starter for Texas on Friday night, last year's first team All Big 12, second team All American, really solid pitcher and a guy that I think is going to be making a lot of noise this year in the Big 12. 91 pitches in 3 innings. 91 pitches in 3 innings. That's a lot. To put that into perspective, Luke Holman also had 91 pitches on the night, and he did that in over 5. In 5 2/3 innings, he gave you the same number of pitches as Texas's starter LeBaron Johnson gave you in 3. That's massive. Just keep working him. Keep working him. It felt like nearly every single count that I would look at, I'm like, oh, it's a full count. And like whatever the at bat resulted in, whether it was a walk, whether it was an out, whether it was a base hit, whatever it might have been, you're still getting at least 7 pitchers out of your starting pitcher before the at bat has even concluded. So 91 pitches from LeBaron Johnson in just 3 innings. That's huge. Overall on the night against Texas, Texas's pitchers combined for 213 total pitches to your 145. Like that, what is that, a difference of 70-ish? To get 70 pitches from your starters, fairly good outing. So that's the difference of a full arm, if not more. So that was huge. ULL as well. Their starter on the day, Andrew Herman, you got him up to 93 pitches in 4 2/3 innings. It's that discipline at the plate. It's knowing how to work a pitcher. It's knowing how to work your at bat. Maybe not biting at the very first thing that comes your way. Having discipline at a full count to not just long bombs away. Being able to write it and kind of flexing your muscle a little bit at the plate, taking control of your at bat. So that's a testament to Jay Johnson there. So again, big weekend for LSU baseball. I'm fired up about this team. I mean, of course I was before, obviously, the reigning national champions team, but I thought that this past weekend was going to be the real true test. Because yeah, you can beat VMI and Central Arkansas and you can get a couple scares from Stony Brook the past weekend before, but Texas is a team that you are going to see in the postseason. Like Texas is a perennial contender. Texas is always traditionally a very good team. You were tested the first true difficult test away from home against a good team with their ace on Friday night, and you were able to take it 6-3. Really, really encouraging stuff from LSU baseball this past weekend. Let's switch to the hardwood. A little bit of breaking news that came out on Monday afternoon after a win against Vanderbilt this past weekend. We'll get into the latest from Matt McMahon and his squad, and we'll get into that coming up next. All right, I want to tell you about FanDuel. Get buckets this season with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right, that's $150 if your first bet wins. So bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. I think that's my favorite thing about the FanDuel Sportsbook app is not only is it incredibly easy to navigate and to find things that you might want to bet on, there's also such a great variety. It's not just money line or point spread or simple prop bets. It's no, there's it goes so in depth. So you can really kind of make things fun and shake things up. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. Again, that is fanduel.com/locked on. And new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, rolling along here, locked on LSU. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. A little bit of breaking news coming out on Monday afternoon. Matt McMahon spoke with the media and said that Jalen Cook has been suspended from the team. He said it is for a failure to meet the standards that he has set for his team. I don't know exactly what that means, but Jalen Cook has been out since mid-February. His last game came on February 13th. He's been out with a hamstring injury. And remember, going back to the beginning of the season, he was out the first 10 games of the season, kind of working through NCAA rules with the two-time transfer rule. Remember, Jalen Cook started at LSU, transferred to Tulane, then transferred back to LSU. So you've only gotten 13 games from Jalen Cook so far this season, only 9 starts. That's less than half of the games that you've played so far this season. But what you have gotten from Jalen Cook has been really freaking solid. I mean, he's averaging just shy of 16 points a game. What you did get from him, whether it was at the boards or offensively or what he gave you defensively, averaging 15, just shy of 16 points a game, just shy of 4 rebounds a game, just shy of 3 assists a game. It's not eye-popping stats. It doesn't just jump off the paper, but just compared to what you have, kind of contribution from the rest of the team, he's your leading scorer on the year by the average, 15.6 points per game. So yes, it's a loss in that you don't get that production, or at least the hope of Jalen Cook coming back this season seems to dissipate. I think if you're making this move at this point in the season, I wouldn't expect Jalen Cook to be back. That sounds to me that, look, you're done for the year. Start the SEC tournament next week. I don't know if this is a thing where he's going to be suspended for the week as kind of a kick in the butt of, look, we expect more and we'll see you in the tournament. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. I would not be surprised if we have seen our last of Jalen Cook in an LSU uniform. And look, that's disappointing. I wanted to see, we know what kind of talent Jalen Cook has. I wanted to see what more he could have done. Now, what he's been dealing with this past less than a month with the hamstring injury, it's what left him out. I don't know the specifics of the situation. It does all seem just a little bit fishy. But look, I have no problem with it. If Matt McMahon is setting certain standards for his basketball team, and those standards are not being met, I don't care if you're scoring 1 point a game, and I don't care if you're scoring 25 points a game. If you're not doing what we ask of you off the court, on the court, in practice, in games, whatever it might be, like, you have to discipline your players. I think back to, what Brian Kelly said a lot about the first 2 years as the head coach, that you're setting a foundation, you're setting the expectation. That's what Matt McMahon is doing right now. He's in his second year. He's still building the foundation. He's still establishing the expectations. What will fly and what's not going to fly. And clearly what Jalen Cook has done, whatever it is, it ain't flying with Matt McMahon and this team. So let that be a lesson to any other guy in that locker room. If you don't meet our standards, you don't get to be on this team. So while it would be great if you could have at least kept the door open, and the door is still open, but it feels a little bit different. But while it would have been great to have Jalen Cook's, offensive firepower, just another guy off the bench or just some more depth or even just a go-to guy offensively. Well, it would have been great to have that, especially getting into the postseason and especially getting into the SEC tournament, which I think is going to be honestly a freaking murderer's row, no matter who you play. Look, sorry, dude. If you're not doing what we ask of you, we can't have you on this ball team. So it's a shame. I hope to see Jalen Cook back. I don't expect it, but if he can get things figured out, and if he returns to the level that Matt McMahon needs him to be at, then hey, good for you. More power to you. That's gonna do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. LSU football spring practice starts on Tuesday. So, coming up on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU, a preview of spring practice. What I want to find out from spring practice, questions that I have, and players that I am watching throughout spring practice. And we'll get into that on tomorrow morning's edition of Locked On LSU.